Hi guys, today's session we will start with real gases. So to understand real gases, first we need to go through some terms, especially the intermolecular forces. So let me start with that. What are intermolecular forces? See, usually when we are discussing about ideal gases, we know that it does not have any forces of attractions or repulsion. So the potential energy between the particles is zero. But when we take about real gases, certainly they will have certain interactions. Either those interactions could be attractive forces, repulsive forces, or they may not have interaction also. So usually what it has been observed that when particles are far away from each other, this is the distance between the particles. If the particles are far away from each other, then there won't be any attraction or there won't be hardly any interaction. So that's why you will see this plot. Got it? So here you can see the plot, it almost touches zero. Okay, which means the potential energy between the particles is hardly existing. Now as the difference between their distance keeps decreasing, now slowly the attractive forces will start dominating. As attractive forces will start dominating, the potential energy will start, applying. And usually potential energy for an attractive particles would always be negative. So you would see a negative potential is developed. Okay. At some point, the attractive forces between the particles reaches maximum. That is the time where you have maximum potential energy. Okay, in negative scale obviously, but magnitude wise, right, if you check out, this is the part potential energy where particles have a very strong interaction. Now if you start pushing the particles more strongly, that means if you try to bring them more closely by applying pressure, then if they come much more close to them what is expected, then repulsive forces will dominate. So this repulsive forces will dominate and potential energy drastically increases. Okay, so this is what is usually observed whenever we have real gases. So which means it may have attractive forces, repulsive forces, or slightly less interactions. Next, attractive forces are dominant when the gas particles are far. As I said, the separation should be at least 10 times the diameter of the particle. Then it is expected that they would have some attractive forces. Repulsive forces are dominant when gas particles are very close to each other. Attractive forces between the gas particles are what we call it as van der Waals forces. So this term is important to us. What exactly are van der Waals forces of attraction? So the attractive forces existing between the gas particles is what we call it as van der Waals forces of attraction. Okay. Now there are three types of majorly there are three types of van der Waals forces. The first one being dispersion force. The first one is known as the dispersion force. It has one more name, that is London dispersion forces or simply dispersion forces. Okay. Normally, it is seen in non-polar gas particles. Non-polar gas particles like one helium molecule with another helium molecule. In case if there are any interactions between them, if at all there are any interactions between them, these interactions, these attractive forces are what we call it as dispersion forces. Similarly, if you have H2 molecule and within H2 molecule if you have any interactive forces, we call them again as dispersive forces. Like that you can imagine in case if you have a chlorine molecule also, correct? Suppose if you have a chlorine molecule in here, let's say there is chlorine molecule here and one more chlorine molecule, right? So between these two also, whatever the interactions are, these are all non-polar type of molecules, and the interactions between them, the attractive forces between them, are what we call it as dispersion forces. Okay, what are the important pointers you must remember here, right? So first point here is that this is the weakest interactive forces of attraction, interactive forces of attraction. Okay, it has one more name which is induced dipole, induced dipole and induced dipole interactions, induced dipole and induced dipole interactions. Next thing you can see, potential energy between these two particles would be inversely proportional to the distance par 6, where r is the separation distance, and raised to power of 6, which means it is a very short range distance. So when the particles are very close, right, so then only it will act. Okay, in short, see, I will try to make you understand a simple term. Suppose if there is any particle like this, these two are gas particles. Okay, initially they don't have any charge, so which means suppose if it is coming from a far distance here, as both of them approach, they would hardly have any interactions. But as they approach so close here now, once they approach very close, slowly there is an induction of positive charge on one of the molecule and negative charge on the other molecule. So this charge induction will bring the attractive forces between them. This is what we call it as the dispersion forces. Okay, this effect is temporary. So these are temporary forces of attraction. Temporary as in they will only act when you bring these molecules or particles very close to each other. If they are not close, then there won't be any forces of attraction between them. Okay. Next one is a dipole induced dipole forces. Okay. Now you can see forces of attraction in between non-polar molecules and a polar molecule. So when you have a polar molecule and a non-polar molecule, then whatever the interactions between them is what we call it as induced dipole forces. So here, like chlorine is a non-polar molecule, HCl is a polar molecule. So possibly this side delta negative will develop and this side delta positive will develop because of hydrogen, and that's how they will have an interaction. Here, what are the important points we must remember is that the potential energy here also is inversely proportional to r raised to power of 6. Okay. Again, these are also very short range cases, and London forces, that is the dispersion forces, also be active in this, also be active, but the magnitude, but the magnitude magnitude is very small, is very small compared to, magnitude is very small compared to dipole induced dipole interactions. See, think this way, whether there is any forces of attraction or not, minimum is that they will have London forces. Now, if anything more than London forces is coming, then the magnitude will be quite different. So dipole induced dipole interactions would have high magnitude as compared to that of London forces. So these type of forces are also known as, these type of forces are also known as Debye forces, DEBVI, Debye forces of attraction. So remember this terminology. What are Debye forces? So we learned two types of forces, London forces and Debye forces. Third one being dipole-dipole interactions. Okay. So this is about, you know, an interaction between a dipole and a dipole. So here London dispersion forces are always going to be acting, but the dipole-dipole is much more dominant. So these forces are known as Keystone forces. These are known as Keystone forces. So three types of forces, London, Debye and Keystone. So these are the types of forces you must know. Now when it comes to dipole-dipole interactions, got it? one thing you need to check out is that how the potential energy varying, correct? So potential energy is actually inversely proportional to 1 by r raised to power of 3 in case if it is a stationary molecules, and potential energy is r raised to power of 6 if there are rotating polar molecules. Okay, which means simple that if you have gases and they have very strong interactions, like dipole dipole. For example, if you take ammonia has very high dipole moment. So if I take two molecules of ammonia, let's say this is one molecule of ammonia, this is the other molecule of ammonia. ammonia naturally will have Ammonia naturally will have a dipole of its own, so which means it is delta positive and delta negative on its own. This side also it will have delta negative, delta positive, and this is a permanent dipole. That means even if the molecule is far away, still they will have a dipole moment. So they will always have this permanent dipole existing. So when there is a permanent dipole, this forces of attraction, suppose if the particles have come so close that these particles are not moving, got it? Almost this happens when the state is changing, when the gaseous state is almost close to the liquid state, then this would happen. Their interactions are very less. I mean, sorry, their movement of particles is very less. At that point, if you check out the potential energy, it would be inversely proportional to R cube. But when they are rotating polar molecules, so that means when they are in a highly gaseous state and they are moving around, then they will have R raised to power of 6. Okay, so directly in JE, this type of questions have been asked, objective type questions, like in stationary molecules, what is the potential energy, how does it vary? For rotating polar molecules, how does it vary? Okay, another thing which I can point out here is that this is a permanent, okay, permanent forces of attraction. Okay, so they would have interactions nevertheless how far the particles are, got it? So they'll always have these interactions happening. Okay, I guess you understood that. The last kind is an hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding is just a special case of dipole dipole interactions. Dipole dipole interactions, got it? You'll be learning them in detail in chemical bonding, so we'll not be discussing that here. So but you know that it is just a special case of hydrogen bonding. Okay, so those are about the attractive forces. Now what are the repulsive forces? How would they act? When particles are very close to each other, almost touching, then the particles are almost touching, then repulsive forces will dominate. This is when you see the repulsive forces will come into existence. Okay, here again you can see, I can say that potential energy will be inversely proportional to r raised to power of 12. Okay, r raised to power of 12. This is also a short range forces. Short range forces as in when the particles are very close to each other, then it would start acting. Okay, now our objective is to study about real gases which would have both attractive forces as well as repulsive forces. Before starting more into real gases, there are two important distinctions we need to understand between real gases and ideal gases. So when it comes to ideal gases, we know that ideal gases are assumed to have uh, no intermolecular forces, no intermolecular or atomic, intermolecular or atomic forces of attraction or repulsion. That's why we assume the potential energy is 0. Second important assumption which we will always consider about ideal gases is that volume of molecules are negligible. Volume of molecules are negligible compared to the volume of the container. These are the two important terms which we will study in ideal gases. But when it comes to real gases, this is a challenge we need to check, that in real gases what is to be considered. In real gases, what we say that the volume of real gas molecules are not neglected while studying, and interactive forces between gas molecules are not neglected or ignored. Okay, so two important terms here. One is the volume of the real gas, right? That is not to be uh, ignored. Second one is the intermolecular forces of attraction or repulsion, whatever that case is. These two we always have to assume when you are discussing about real gases. Okay, now real gases have been composed and given by many different scientists, out of which the most used ones or most common ones which we'll be using, right, is van der Waals. you know this is called the van der Waals real gas equation. Got it? So, like I said, there are many types of real gas equations, and only one of them is what we will study them, and which is van der Waals real gas equation. In the van der Waals real gas equation, this is how it looks like. There are many terms here, so let's go one by one. It is P plus A n square by V square into V minus NB is equal to nRT. So this is the equation, van der Waals equation. Let us go term by term. What does this terms represent? P represents the pressure of the gas, pressure of the real gas, okay. Next, V represents the volume of container, okay. Usually volume of container is also assumed to be the volume of real gas. Next, N represents number of moles, where N represents number of moles. T represents temperature. T represents temperature in kelvins. Correct. And let us see, there are few more terms here. One is this A and B. A and B represents van der Waals constants. Okay. These two factors together, like A n square by V square is one factor, NB is called the other factor. So this one, A n square by V square, this is called the pressure correction, and NB is called the volume correction. This is called the volume correction. Okay, and one important thing that we must understand here is that the values of A and B, which we call it as the van der Waals constants, okay, are different for different gases. They're different for different gases, but they are independent of temperature. This is a very, very important assumption that was taken by van der Waals. So temperature and pressure. So for every different gas it would be different, but they will be same for a particular gas at any temperature and pressure. Okay, and also generally this we see that A value is more than B, you know, this is always true. This is what you'll observe. So this is the minimum sense we should know about van der Waals real gas equation. So let me just brief you again. P plus A n square by V square into V minus NB is equal to nRT is the real gas equation. P is the pressure, V is the volume of container, number of moles, temperature, AB or van der Waals constant. This term is called pressure correction, this term is called volume correction. A and B are independent of temperature and pressure, but it will vary for different gases. A values and B values would be different for different gases. Usually it is found that A is greater than B. Okay, so this is the basic idea you must have. Now coming to the factor, like I said, pressure correction. Pressure correction was what? A n square by V square. So let us try to find out how exactly this has been derived. What exactly is the pressure correction? How this has been derived here. Okay. Pressure corrections is the case when we are thinking like, you know, there is a certain interaction between the particles. Suppose if this is a container and in the container I have some reference atom. Let's say this is my reference atom. Got it? And there are other atoms in them, atoms or molecules, whatever that is. Got it? These are all the particles which we have. So imagine this, the pressure of this pressure of any gas is because it hits the walls of the container, and as the particle is moving towards the walls of the container, there is an attractive forces developed, because now I can't ignore the interactions. So imagine if there is any attractive forces developed for the particle. So what happens? The particle's speed will slow down. So if the speed will slow down, momentum will be decreased. If the momentum will decrease, the force applied on the walls of the container will decrease. If that decreases, pressure will decrease. So there is definitely a decrease in the pressure when there is a attractive forces being acting on that particle. Okay, so I guess that is making sense, guys. So which means this pressure correction first depends on strength of intermolecular forces, strength of intermolecular forces of attraction. So I guess that makes sense. I'm sorry. So one factor what I can say is that, okay, if you check out about pressure correction, I can say that this pressure correction, I'll write this as PC, is directly proportional to N by V. Why I'm saying N by V? N by V is the number of moles of gases per volume given. Why? Because suppose if the particle is here, you can see this one, this particle, think this way, this particle would hardly have any attractive forces on this, correct? So I can't count this particle to give any kind of attractive forces to this reference particle, which means I need to just check out around this particle how many number of particles do we have, which means it is nothing but the molar density. Think about it. So if there are more number of particles around it, then more amount of attractive forces will be appear. So I can say that N by V, which is molar density, that is number of moles per unit total volume here, so which I call it as the molar density. So PC depends upon molar density. Okay. Now imagine this, if one particle is getting attracted to other particle, can I say the other particle speed is also decreasing? Because if my speed is decreasing because of attraction, the other particle speed must also be decreasing. So therefore, all the particles, if we check out, this is about one particle. And if I consider every particle as a reference particle, for all the particles, there is one more term that will come like N by V. Okay. So I can say that here number of particles number of particles attracting one particle is proportional to n by v. Okay? And another particle also experiences same attraction as a reference particle. Therefore, I can say the pressure correction is proportional to n by v, and also it is also proportional to another n by v. So which implies Pc is actually proportional to n square by v square, or Pc is equal to some constant A into n square by v square. So that's how the pressure correction term has been come across. Okay, right. So there is one more way of explaining this. Okay, this is one way of explaining. There is one more way of explaining this. Imagine this. Suppose if this particle is moving, okay, and there are definitely few particles around it which are attracting. Because of attractive forces, Pc is proportional to n by, sorry, how many particles are attracting? Suppose if there are n number of particles, so n number of particles minus 1 by volume, something like this. These many number of particles are attracting. Okay. Now, if this particle is moving towards this walls of the container, earlier for ideal gas, particle size was ignorant. So any particle that is coming on the way, it doesn't matter whether it is coming on the way or not. Okay, got it. So but here if you check out what I can say, this particle as it is moving, more amount of crowding that comes, okay, because of the uh, uh, collision with that particle, its ability to reach the wall will decrease. So more number of particles, between the wall and the reference particle, okay, less will be the pressure acting on that particle, less will be the pressure acting on that wall. So I can add one more correction here. So Pc is also proportional to n by v. This n by v is because of the crowding of particles. This is because of the attraction by the same particles. Got it? See, I'll simply write this as n, so that makes sense, number of moles. Got it? So one term is coming because of particles crowding, one term is coming because of attractive forces, and this is all talking with respect to one particle. Like that, if you have every particle, there will be total decrease in the correction, or a decrease in the pressure. Okay, and that is what we get it as n square by v square. So either ways you can understand this on whichever is a comfort way, but overall you will see two factors of molar density would come into account, and Pc will be equal to A n square by V square. That is about the pressure correction. Now let us deal with volume correction. Volume correction, what I can say, first thing we need to learn that van der Waal assumes only bimolecular collisions are taking place in real gases. He assumes that only bimolecular collisions are taking place in real gases. Okay. So I am writing it as volume of the gas. These are the abbreviations I'll be using now. Volume of the gas is nothing but volume of the container. This is a general understanding. Whenever we say volume of the gas, it is always volume of the container. There is one very important term we need to define, something called free volume. What does that mean? It is the volume available for gas molecules to occupy the space. Okay, for instance, okay, in my room there are certain gases. If at all I tell you what is a if at all I ask you what is the volume of these gases, we'll say whatever be the volume of the uh, room, that would be the volume of that particles, gas particles. Okay. Usually when we think about ideal gases, got it, what one thing we will always have to take care in ideal gases is that the particle size is negligible. Since particle size is negligible, we can say that every particle is trying to occupy whatever space that is available. So for them, the space available is the space of the container, right? So that is why volume in an ideal scenario, in an ideal gas, the free volume will always be same as that of the container volume. So that is the next important point which you need to understand in case of ideal gas. In case of ideal gas, I can say free volume, which is the available volume, will always be equal to volume of the container. Will always be equal to volume of the container. Okay, but in case of real gases, got it? In case of real gases, free volume will be equal to volume of container minus volume of some correction. That means some kind of a correction value has to be there, right? So what is this correction? This is nothing but volume of particles. This correction is nothing but volume of particles. Check this here. In these three cases, what I am saying, first container is about ideal volume. V ideal is equal to free volume. Okay, so this as free volume. Free volume, which is same as the volume of the container. This is for an ideal gas. But when the particle size is this, in this the particle size is ignorant, correct? So here particle size is negligible. That's why I'm saying that free volume is same as container volume. But if the particle size is not negligible, you can see not the entire space is available here. So this is a real gas. So in the real gas, not the entire part of the volume of the container is available for particles to move. So at a particular time instance, at any particular time, if you check out what is the volume a particle can occupy, you can see this is the free volume available. Okay. So consider that all the particles have bring them to one particular place here. Got it? So they all have been so in this place. So in here they occupy certain amount of volume, and that volume is the volume of particles, and volume of particles is also called as volume of correction or correction volume. So therefore now if at all I asked you what is the free volume available, that would be volume of the container minus volume of the correction or volume of the particles. So I hope you understood that. So our next objective, like we said, was trying to calculate what is the volume correction. So volume correction Vc for real gases is proportional to number of moles of the gases. More the number of moles, more will be the volume occupied by the particles. So it is a very simple relation here. So V is directly proportional to number of moles. Okay. So if I remove that proportionality, if I remove this proportionality, I'll get a constant n into B times. So this B is what is, van der Waals constant. Van der Waals second constant. Okay guys. So there are two constants you will get for van der Waals, A and B. So B is this second constant which we got it. So to understand more particularly about V, right, let me take this case here. What I'm doing, I'm making a bimolecular collision here now. So imagine this particle, this particle has come and this particle has come. Both of them have made collisions. Okay, both of them have made collisions, right? So this thing is not there first. So these two have made collisions. As soon as the collision happened, correct, Since it is a bimolecular collision, what can I say? Since it is a bimolecular collision, this entire space around the particle, okay, entire space around the particle must not be approached by any other particle. Like, there is no other particle that should approach, because if it is approaching at the same time, then it won't be bimolecular collision. It may be trimolecular, tetramolecular, anything. So if it is a bimolecular collision, these particles should not approach this space. So which means, particle, when two particles are colliding with each other, that particular particle's volume is anyway not available. Along with that, there is some volume around them that is also not available. So I hope you understood what I'm trying to say. So this entire volume which I have written here, this entire volume is not available for any other particle to come, okay, at the point of collision. So therefore I can say that volume volume of the sphere volume of the sphere is not available for other molecules as collision is bimolecular. Okay, now see guys, this this particular you can see that here, sorry, got it. So this particle possibly may approach from here, it 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 may approach from here, from any particular place, correct? It is not necessary that it has to only approach from this end. I hope all of you are with me. It can approach from this end also, it can approach from this end also. That's why, that means this entire volume which we are seeing, okay, you can see this entire volume which I am seeing, correct? So when two particles collide with each other, that entire volume is a distribution of is the total space of two molecules only. Okay, any other space is available for other particles to come. So that means a third particle, okay, I can say that a third particle may exist here, it can be here, it can be here, it can be here, not touching, it can be here, it can be here, it can be here, it can be here, but it won't be in that particular sphere which I have made, big sphere which I made. Okay, so I guess that logic is clear. So what I can say, that the volume of that sphere, right, which is not available for the third particle, is 4 by 3 pi into 2r whole cube, because the radius of that would be, you can see the radius would be this much, this will be the radius, correct? I guess you understood that. And that radius is 2r, right? Okay, r is the radius of one particular particle, so 2r is the radius there. So 2r implies this is 8 times of 4 by 3 pi r cube. So 8 times of a volume of, this is 8 times volume of a particle, is not available when a bimolecular collision happens. Okay. Now since this is not an available volume, now can I say that occupied by volume occupied by two molecules or particles, two molecules or particles, will be equal to 8 times of volume of particle, 8 times of volume of particle. Okay, so therefore for one molecule, volume occupied would be how much? So I'm just using the unitary method, like for two molecules, right? For two molecules, if this much was the volume, for one molecule how much will be the volume occupied? So for one molecule it will be 4 times the volume of the particle, 4 times that was the volume of the particle. Okay, now this factor is what we call it as the excluded volume or co-volume. So let me define that. Factor B, which we defined, van der Waals factor, it is actually volume occupied by one mole of real gas. 1 mole of real gas particles. It is about 1 mole real gas particles. How much amount of volume that has been occupied. So I can say that B is equal to 4 times of 4 by 3 pi r cube into Na, because that was for one particle. If you have 1 mole, it means Na number of particles. So multiply with that. So this would be the formula for B. Okay. This is directly asked in exams, guys. So you must remember. So what is B exactly? This is also known as, B is also known as co-volume, because it is a bimolecular collision. It is a volume created because of two particles. It is also known as co-volume, or it has one more name, excluded volume, also known as excluded volume. Okay, so I guess you understand what is B factor now. Okay, so now substituting that A and B back, we will get the van der Waals real gas expression. Got it? How we are substituting that? See, we know that P into V is equal to nRT. What is this P? P is the ideal gas pressure, and V is also free volume. Free volume, that is equal to nRT. Correct? So I am making a correction for within this same formula and making it for the real gas. So how I can make now? See, this would be real gas plus a n square by v square, because this much amount of gas was this much amount of pressure correction was seen as compared to that of ideal gas. Correct? So if I combine these two, that would be equal to the ideal gas. If I combine these two, that would be same as that of ideal gas pressure. Same way, when it comes to free volume, this time the free volume is about the container volume minus the volume of the particles, minus the volume of the particles. So this has become the free volume now. Correct? So if I substitute those two values here, because you can we know that container volume of the particles is n into B. So if I take these two factors and put it back in the ideal gas equation, I would get this, right? So P plus A n square by V square, V minus NB and nRT. Here one important conclusion, what you can see, that here is ideal gas pressure, correct, is less than the, is greater than the, real gas pressure as per the van der Waals assumption. Okay, because here he is assuming that when the attractive forces are dominant, then pressure applied because of ideal gas, as you can see that, because P ideal, will come up with some volume correction here, pressure correction there. Okay, same way free volume, let me write here, free volume, right, for ideal gas is obviously greater than the free volume in real gas. This is the available volume where the gas particles are moving. Okay, so on this basis, he was able to find out what exactly is the real gas equation look like. Got it? Now in this, I can write the same equation. I can write this as, you imagine like I took this V minus NB to the right hand side. So then I can write this as P plus A n square by V square is equal to nRT by V minus NB. Correct? And again, if I take this to the right hand side, I will get P is equal to nRT by V minus NB minus A n square by V square. Mathematically, I can make two important conclusions here. See, imagine if B is increasing. If B is increasing, V minus NB value will decrease in the denominator. You can see that here B term is there. If this B value increases, V minus NB will decrease. If that value decreases, obviously the pressure will increase. Okay, I guess you understood that. So pressure increases, which means B is a factor, B is related B is related with size and repulsive forces. Repulsive forces. Think about it, guys. If two particles have more repulsive forces, so because they have repulsive forces, gas particles will try to be far away from each other, so they will make more number of collisions with the walls of the container, hence increasing the pressure. So we see as we see, if repulsive forces if repulsive forces if repulsive forces increases, pressure increases. So that is the justification I can give you about B mathematically. Okay, now we can check for A also. If A is increased, see where exactly is A is here, correct? It is here, you can see. So if A value is increased, correct, it will directly decrease the pressure here, because this entire factor is subtracted by this value, so that will decrease the pressure here. So we can say that as A increases, right, n square A by V square value here, this would increase, and pressure would decrease. Therefore I can say A is related with attractive forces. A is related to attractive forces, or I'll call it as intermolecular forces of attraction, IMF. Okay, as we see, if attractive forces increases, pressure decreases. I hope you guys are able to understand how mathematically we were able to justify about A and about B. So right, so in short, right, let me just show you with an example here. In short, what you can check it out, that for example, if you check out a value of HCl and Cl2, a value of HCl is quite high. Why? Because HCl will have dipole moment already, so they will have dipole interactions, and since they will have dipole interactions, they will have very strong attractions as compared to Cl2. Cl2 is a non-polar molecule, so it will only have dispersion forces, so they are very weak. Similarly, if we have two non-polar molecules, then larger the size of the molecule, more will be the interactive forces of attraction. This is van der Waals rule. Okay, when you have larger uh, charge spread, then they will have more amount of attraction between the particles. In fact, this is the same reason by which you can explain F2, Cl2, Br2 and I2 state at room temperature. At room temperature, this is gas. Okay, this is gas. This is liquid. I'm sorry. Iodine is actually solid. Why it is solid? Because it is a very large size particle. So the van der Waals interactions between them, which is London forces, are stronger as compared to that of bromine, chlorine or fluorine. Okay, I guess you understood that. Next, what are the units of A and B? You can check out. For A, it is a pressure kind of a unit with volume also is in account. So I can write this as ATM liter square per mole square, right? While B is NB only, so it is simply liter per mole, or I'll just write it as lit mole inverse. These are the units of A and B. Now one thing you can remember from now itself, that if you consider a molecule and an atom, then molecule will usually have more amount of size as compared to that of atom when they are comparable sizes. In short, let me show you that if this is hydrogen atom, if this is hydrogen atom and this is helium atom, now this is helium atom. Okay, so for helium atom I would say this is the this entire thing is the size of the helium. Hydrogen atom, this is the size of the hydrogen atom. But if it is a hydrogen molecule will be, you know, like this. It will be covalent bonded and it will be like this. This is hydrogen molecule. Now if you will ask me what is the volume of hydrogen gas, then hydrogen molecule, then I'll take this as a volume. Now compare these two volumes, guys. Which one is bigger? So molecule, when you compare a molecule with an atom, molecule of a similar size atoms, then we can always say the molecules size would be bigger relatively as compared to that of atom. Okay, so this is one important fact you got to remember. So I can say that B of H2 is greater than that of B of He. Okay, because H2 is a molecule, He is just an atom there. Okay, and if you consider about two similar type of molecules, definitely you just check out the size, like bromine and like chlorine and hydrogen. If you check out, the B value of chlorine is greater than B value of H2. Amazing fact here is, okay, a lot of students have made this mistake in 2003 question paper in IIT JEE. They asked the question about both A and B and four options were given. One option was this: A of chlorine greater than H2 and B of chlorine greater than H2, and other option was A of chlorine is less than H2 and B of chlorine is less than H2. All of them choose this one, and the other option was B of chlorine less than B of H2. First understand this, okay? It is not necessary that if A value of certain molecule is more, then its B value has to be less. Okay, it may so happen that A value is also more and B value may be more. Okay, which will dominate is a secondary factor, but just on the basis of dimensions, if you check it out, A and B value for chlorine, both of them are bigger as compared to that of hydrogen. Okay, so that is one factor you must take care of. So I hope you understood how we generated the Van der Waals real gas equation. Now to understand its application, we need to introduce a very important term called compressibility factor. Most of the questions from real gases comes with the compressibility factors ideology. Let's see what does this compressibility factor teaches us. It is a mathematical term where Z is defined as Z being V real by V ideal. Students, any doubt beta? Okay, I'm continuing. By definition, it has been said that Z can be defined as V real by V ideal, or it can be temperature real by temperature ideal. Okay, and so on. There are many definitions like this, but mainly the definition which we need to check out is V real upon V ideal, which means volume occupied by the real gas versus volume occupied by the ideal gas at same pressure, temperature and number of moles. Similarly, when you consider this definition, this has to be same number of moles, volume and pressure. Okay, so I guess you understood these two definitions. Right. So suppose we know, if at all I use this formula, V Z is equal to V real by V ideal. V real by V ideal. For ideal gas, I can always write PV is equal to nRT. So I can write this as P into V real by nRT as well. Correct? Because V ideal, I'm replacing that by nRT by V. So we can always write this as well. Now I'm comparing the cases. Like I said, all these cases are at same number of moles, temperature and pressure. That is very, very important, or else you won't be able to understand the logic behind compressibility factor. Okay, so now focus on this very carefully. So I made three cases. Okay, case 1, case 2, case 3. Observe the cases carefully. First case is I'm taking an ideal gas and a real gas and in two containers, okay, and I'm trying to measure the volume occupied at same number of moles of gases, same temperature and pressure. Ninja faded. Okay. So V real. So in this first case, let me take that if V real is greater than V ideal. So if V real is greater than V ideal, what can I say that? Which means Z value is greater than 1. I know all of you are with me on this. If Z value is greater than 1, can I say that uh, usually this is happening because repulsive forces are dominant. Repulsive forces or repulsive forces are dominant. Why repulsive forces are dominant? Think about it. See, if real gas is occupying more amount of volume to keep the same amount of pressure, okay, to keep the same pressure, if it has to cover more amount of volume, which means there is a repulsive forces between the particles, then only they are trying to be far away from each other and trying to occupy more volume. Okay, I hope that is making sense. Second case, when V ideal is greater than V real, I can say that Z value compressibility factor is less than 1. By definition, that is by definition, because Z is equal to V real by V ideal. So if Z is equal to 1, which means to occupy the same amount of pressure, sorry, to keep at the same amount of pressure, the volume occupied by ideal is more than that of volume occupied by real. So which means Z is less than 1. This would happen when real gases will have more attractive forces between the particles. Hence I can say that the attractive forces are dominant here. So attractive forces are dominant. Attractive forces are dominant. Third case, when V ideal is same as V real, that means when the volume in both the cases are same, that means Z is equal to 1. So I can say that this real gas is behaving like ideal gas. Behaving like ideal gas. Or it is getting an ideal gas behavior. Students, any doubts so far? Please do ask. Okay. Yeah, tell me, Vita.
No, sir.
Okay, I'm continuing. Same way, this time I'm defining Z in terms of uh, T real by T ideal. T real by T ideal. Okay. This is at constant number of moles, volume, and pressure. Again, I'll get three cases. First case, T real is greater than T ideal. Imagine if it has to keep same amount of pressure, if real gas has to keep same amount of pressure here, correct, then it is trying to increase its temperature. Got it? Here this factor is not about volume, please understand that. Don't measure it like a volume, it is about temperature. Okay, that means this is at higher temperature, this is at lower temperature. Okay, don't measure it like the way I have measured for volume there, it is about temperature change. So the second one has more temperature. If real gas has more temperature than that of ideal gas, what does this mean? Which means Z is greater than 1. It is Z is greater than 1. Okay. Achha, if Z is greater than 1, here what is happening? If Z is greater than 1 here what is happening? Here you can see attractive forces are dominant. Attractive forces are dominant. Why attractive forces are dominant? See, to keep the same amount of pressure, correct, the second gas has more amount of temperature. That means real gas has to get more amount of temperature. That means it is only possible when you have given more amount of heat compared to more amount of heat compared to that of ideal gas. Or think in the converse also. Imagine Both ideal and real gas are at same level in terms of temperature, but the pressure of real gas is less. To increase that pressure to and equate that to ideal gas, what should we do? We have to increase the temperature, right? I hope you guys are following that. These are just basic gas laws. Okay, we know that, think like this: PV is equal to nRT, correct? So if these are all constant, and if P temperature has to increase, pressure has to be increased. So if pressure of the real gas is less, that is when they have more number of particles, more number of attractive forces. To equate that to ideal gas pressure, then I have to apply more amount of temperature. I hope you guys followed the logic. So that's why when you write the compressibility factor in terms of temperature, Z greater than 1 represents the attractive forces. Rest all I am writing it, you guys can guess that. Z less than 1 represents repulsive forces. Repulsive forces are dominant here. And here it is ideal gas behavior. Ideal gas behavior. Okay, in our syllabus we only have volume based compressibility factor, correct? But in case if this has been asked in terms of temperature, please understand that it goes exactly reverse the way it goes for volume. Okay, I hope you guys understood the definition of what is compressibility factor. It has a lot more mathematical application. See, one thing I can say that PV is equal to nRT can also be written as PM is equal to DRT. Right? We can write this also. And we know that PV Z is equal to PV real by nRT. If I bring this V to the denominator here, got it? Then I will get this as P by D M R T, and this is for real gas. Density is also for real gas. Sorry, real. So therefore it is PM by D real RT. Okay, this is also one way of representing Z. So there was once a question which was given where density of the real gas was given, pressure of the real gas was given, molar mass of that gas is given. So calculate the Z factor. Direct question. So you can use this. Okay. Now, one thing, if you before going into virial equation, let us just understand why virial equation has to come into existence. See, here when we write about the van der Waals equation, P A n square by V square into V minus NB is equal to nRT. This is not a universal gas equation. Like, you can't apply this for same for every gas. Why? Because for every gas the A and B values are different. Okay, so equation keeps on changing, correct? The values keeps on changing. So it is not the same ideal, it is not the universal equation applied for all the real gases. It is for only that particular real gas for whose A and B values are known. But imagine if I want to make this as an equation which is valid for all the real gases. Got it? See, this is by means of van der Waals equation. Like that, there are many such real gas equations. One is that A n square by T V square into V minus NB is equal to nRT. This is called Berthelot's equation. Same way, there is one more equation, P into uh, e raised to power of minus some A dash. There is something like A dash n square T into V, something like this, is equal to nRT. This is called dietric equation. So there are many such real gas equations, but for us in syllabus we only have van der Waals equation. And from van der Waals equation also, like, we see that there are constants which are coming A and B which are different for different gases. So we want to make an general equation for real gases, and that's what virial equation is all about. So virial equation is a general gas form of real gases. So for any real gas, the general equation looks like this. where compressibility factor z is equal to 1 plus some b by v plus c by v square plus d by v cube, which means if you take van der Waals equation, Berthelot's, Dietrich, these are all the different scientists who has made this real gas equations. You can convert all these equations into this type of an equation, and this is a general real gas equation. Okay. Now in general real gas equation, you can see that for what are these factors? This it is actually supposed to be like this: a plus b by v plus c by v square and so on, like this. Okay. You can see the a value is 1, correct? The first, which means this entire equation, Virial's equation, these are the coefficients, correct? So this is called first coefficient, first coefficient a is equal to 1. Second coefficient, second virial coefficient is b. Okay. Third virial gas coefficient VGC is c, and so on. Now our object is to find out the values of b and c for van der Waals equation, because if I convert van der Waals equation into the same virial form, then what would be my second virial coefficient, third virial coefficient, and so on. This is what we need to find out. Okay. This is one every year definite Olympiad question, those who are planning to give Olympiads. In JEE Advance also, this concept has been very exhaustively used over the years. So please understand this carefully, how it comes. See, let us take for 1 mole now. For n is equal to 1, we can say volume as the molar volume. V is known as molar volume. And let's see the equation now. We know that P plus A by V square, because n is equal to 1, into V minus B is equal to RT. This is what we know from van der Waals equation. If I take this V minus B to the right hand side, then I'll get this as P plus A by V square is equal to RT by V minus B. And again, if at all I take this to the right hand side, I will get this as P is equal to RT by V minus B minus A by V square. Now what I am doing, I am trying to multiply and divide by a factor, okay, V by RT. The entire equation I am trying to multiply and divide by a factor, V by RT. So this is the factor I am multiplying and dividing both sides. So what would I get here? PV by RT is equal to, this RT will get cancelled in the second term. So I'll get this as V by V minus B minus A by RTV. I think so far clear. Now if you see this PV by RT, it is nothing but compressibility factor Z. So compressibility factor Z will be equal to PV by RT, which is equal to, if I take this V to the denominator here, what do I get? I will get this as 1 by 1 by 1 minus B by V minus A by RTV. This is what I get. Okay. So I got the equation as Z is equal to 1 minus B by V, 1 minus B by V whole raised to power of minus 1 minus A by RTV. This is what we got. I think so far clear. Now, as per binomial, expansion, if you may have done or not, I'm not sure, but you may have heard about it. Binomial expansion is about expansion of smaller numbers. Then you have 1 minus x inverse, which is 1 by 1 minus x. If at all I write the expansion for the same, this would be 1 plus x square plus x cube and so on. It is an infinite series. but one condition is x should be very small. X should be a small number than 1. Okay. So here also B is a very small number compared to that of a overall volume, because B is just a volume of the particle, but V is the volume of the container. So the same logic can be applied here also. So B is quite less than V, so I can suppose that 1 by B minus V whole inverse can be written as 1 plus B by V plus B by V whole square plus B by V whole cube and so on, right? So if I put this equation back into that, so I would get Z is equal to 1 minus B by 1 plus B by V. Okay, so you can see this equation, right, plus B square by V square and so on like this. And lastly I have A by RTV. Now if you see this, this is 1 by V, this is also 1 by V. So these two are coefficients of 1 by V, because it is a general equation. If you just go back to the virial equation also, it is a general equation in terms of 1 by V. Okay, 1 by V, 1 by V square, 1 by V cube and so on. Okay, like a harmonic progression. It is going like an harmonic progression. Just B, C, D values are changing. So those are the coefficients which we have. Alright, I'm saying like, okay, it is not exactly like that. So I hope you guys got that idea. So same thing here, not harmonic, sorry, GP. So now if you check it out, 1 plus B by V plus B square by V square and so on, this is how it is. So I could combine all of them at 1 plus. So 1 plus B minus A by RT multiplied by 1 by V plus B square by V square plus on so on. This is how it is been expanding. Okay. So if I compare this with the original equation of Virial's equation, which is 1 plus B by V plus C by V square plus D by V cube and so on. Just compare these to what we can say. A is equal to 1 for sure. Now the Virial's second coefficient B is actually equal to B minus A by RT. Very, very important. Directly questions have been asked what is the second virial coefficient, third virial coefficient and so on. Third virial coefficient is simply B square and so on. Okay. Now this is what we can see, that every real gas expression, every real gas equation can be converted into a virial gas equation. Okay, so virial gas equation in fact is the real gas equation. Now what we can say, that I'm taking one very important case. Imagine at low pressure ranges. At low pressure range, got it, we will have large value of volume V. Okay, we'll have large value of volume. Okay, in that case, can I say that B square by V square, B cube by V cube and the further terms are too small and can be ignored Hence, how does the Z value looks like now? Compressibility factor Z would look like this: 1 plus B minus A by RT into 1 by V. That's it. Because after that the terms, you can go through that. These entire terms, B by V square and further terms, I'm all ignoring those terms. Correct? But this is valid when you have it at low pressure ranges. Okay. Now here at this low pressure we got this new expression for Z. Can I say that if Z is equal to 1 for a ideal gas, for real gas. If it is for a real gas and Z value is 1, what would happen to this equation? Check it out. So I can say that Z value will be equal to 1, which is equal to 1 plus B minus A by RT into 1 by V. So that 1 get cancelled. So I will have B minus A by RT must be equal to 0, which implies T will be equal to A by RB. So this temperature is called Boyle's temperature. This temperature is called as Boyle's temperature. Boyle's temperature. Okay. So Boyle's temperature tells us that it is a temperature, okay, at which the real gas is behaving like an ideal gas. So let me just put it as a definition. Temperature at which real gas behaves like an ideal gas. Acha, there is one important condition we started off with. This is only valid at low pressure regions. Okay. I think any doubt with the mathematical part of it, guys? Just go through that. If you have any doubts, just let me know or I'll continue. Okay. One important thing, little bit of more maths we can apply here. Now imagine this. If I'll write here only, I need more space. If virial second coefficient B, I come up with three conditions. First, it is positive. What does that mean? See, if it is positive, just let me put that equation once again. Z is equal to 1 minus B minus is that B minus A by RT into 1 by B. Correct. Suppose if this value, think properly, if this value is positive, that means Z value has to be less than 1, correct? Simple maths. So I can say that if it is positive, I can always say that Z value has to be less than 1. If this is less than 1, which means attractive forces will be dominating. Hey, we have derived Z. We have, as I told you, Z is with respect to volume ratios we are defining. Okay. So with respect to volume ratios, what we learned? Z is V real by V ideal. Correct. If that value is less than 1, which means attractive forces are dominant in it. Similarly, if at all I put the other case, that if it is negative, if that goes negative, correct? So what would happen there? If that is negative, the Z value has to be greater than 1. Correct. You can see that here, this entire thing being negative will make it positive, and Z value will become greater than 1, which implies the repulsive forces will dominate. Okay. If attractive forces are dominant with Z less than 1 and repulsive forces are dominant with Z greater than 1, okay, what can I say about these values now? Therefore, B minus A by RT, if it is less than 0, which is negative, okay, I can say B minus A by RT, B is less than A by RT, which implies T is less than A by RB, implies temperature is less than Boyle's temperature. Observe this very important conclusion here. Temperature is less than Boyle's temperature. Similarly, if B minus A by RT is greater than 0, I can say B is greater than A by RT, which implies temperature is greater than A by RT, which means this T is greater than Boyle's temperature. Okay, so these are very important conclusions what we got. I think this point is clear so far. So if this case, first case, when it is negative, repulsive forces will dominate, correct? So that means when temperature is less than Boyle's temperature, observe it carefully, I am concluding this. If temperature is less than Boyle's temperature, what kind of a observation we have made here? If temperature is less than Boyle's temperature, then 1 minute, less than 1, A minus B minus A by RT is less than 1, sorry, less than 0, which means it is negative, then temperature is less than A by RB. Correct. If temperature is less than RB, then I can make it is attractive forces being dominant, and here it is repulsive forces being dominant, right? Okay, because accordingly the Z value changes. Correct, guys? Now, check the same thing here. For an isotherm, if I plot Z versus P, okay, isotherm means at constant temperature, I'm plotting the entire range of gas. So one particular gas, if Z is equal to 1 always, that means this is for an ideal gas. When you plot it for an ideal gas, you'll get this line. Okay. But if you draw it for a real gas, okay, and if you draw it for the real gas at its Boyle's temperature, then you can see that at certain low pressure range, let's say this is a low pressure range, LP means low pressure range. Low pressure range, up to this point it is acting ideal. I mean, up to this point it is acting ideal. And that is what the Boyle's temperature means, correct? And below the Boyle's temperature, the attractive forces are dominant. So Z value has to go less than that at the low pressure range. At the low pressure range, it is going less than that. You can check it out. Correct? How it is going? It is going this way. It is dipping down. Again, at very high pressure, everything will go up. Okay. But at the low pressure, we can see that it is going down. If we are operating at a temperature greater than Boyle's temperature, the Z value is always greater than 1 and it will operate this way. Okay. So for any gas, for instance, the similar graph was analyzed for nitrogen gas also. Right. So for nitrogen gas, what it has been observed that at various temperatures, when it was observed, it has been found that this is the way. This is all for suppose temperature T1, T2, T3, T4, T5. These are all the temperature which are observed for nitrogen gas only. For N2 gas, specifically for nitrogen gas, these are the isotherms, Z versus P. So what we can say from here is that T1 is at higher temperature compared to T2, compared to T3, T4, T5 and so on. And this T2, where it is almost becoming same as that of ideal gas at certain low pressures, this is called Boyle's temperature of N2 gas. I hope you understood the logic now. So how it has come, right? So this kind of a graphs are being developed for real gases. So how the isotherms came into existence for real gases, I hope now you understood. It came from the logic of Boyle's temperature. From there we were able to understand how does it change below the Boyle's temperature, above the Boyle's temperature, and what are the high pressure and low pressure regions. Okay. Check out in the case of hydrogen and helium, this is a specific case. Okay. In hydrogen and helium, one thing I already emphasized you that B value of H2 is greater than that of B value of He. This is one thing we have already checked. Correct. And if I plot it for Z versus P, Z versus P, what you can observe here that temperature for hydrogen as well as helium is coming out to be, you know, uh, sorry, this temperature, this is almost at room temperature, room temperature, okay, that is almost greater than that of its boils temperature. This is almost their boils temperature. Got it? So above boils temperature, right, which is almost the room temperature for hydrogen and helium, what we are finding that Z value is always greater than 1. So that is an important conclusion. At all pressures, at all pressures, at some room temperature, at some room temperature T, room temperature T, Z value is always coming out to be greater than 1. So which means repulsive forces are more dominant. Repulsive forces are dominating in hydrogen and helium at normal temperatures. Okay, and exactly if you check out for hydrogen and helium, how the graphs looks like at some particular temperature. Let's say this is a temperature at 25 degrees centigrade. At 25 degrees centigrade, these are the two graphs you will see for hydrogen and helium. These are the isotherms. Why hydrogen is more than that of helium? I just told you. The B value of H2 is more than that of He, and Z factor comes out to be 1 plus Pb by RT. So that is the reason why it has come to be like this. So I guess the hydrogen and helium part is clear. Okay. We will do more of a problem solving with respect to hydrogen and helium. Then you will understand it better possibly. But I hope you got an idea about how the graphs have been made.